As it is the beginning of the new year, it's also Wrestle Kingdom time. We've actually had Wrestle Kingdom, the 2-night affair from New Japan Pro Wrestling over in the Tokyo Dome. And as always, a banger of an event. And to help me break this down, I've been wanting to have this guy on for a long time. Join me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. He is from WrestlingObserver.com. He co-hosts Wrestling Observer Live Sunday through Friday with Brian Alvarez. I call him the voice of reason on that show. He is at Sempervive on Twitter. Mike Sempervive, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. With an introduction like that, how could I be anything other than great? And you are a very wise man for saying the things that you do after listening to a show like that.
Well, I tell you what, I caught your show today. I try to catch it when I can, working from home and everything. And it was kind of funny. I got to ask you. So, and I have all the respect in the world for both you and Brian. But it seems that the number of times you want to reach through the microphone and put a knot on Brian's head goes into double digits each week. Am I close?
Triple digits, actually. That's he has that effect. He tends to have that effect on me. It's and he knows he can. He it's almost like a rib that of all of the shows to do, you have me on the show that's licensed by the FCC and can get us into trouble, because there are a lot of times there are things that are, man, we should be on a 7-second delay. I don't know how either one of us have held it in sometimes talking to each other, but yeah, it's an adventure doing the show with Brian every day. That's for sure.
I tell you, I appreciate his passion, and like I said, I say, and I'll say it till somebody disputes me otherwise, that you are the voice of reason for that show. So let me get your overall take on Wrestle Kingdom. Am I wrong in thinking there wasn't quite the vibe of previous Wrestle Kingdoms, and did the pandemic have anything to do with that?
Absolutely, it did. It absolutely did, especially because of the last couple of years and the numbers that they have been doing. They're probably, I think they announced officially a little over 12,000 for the first night and 7,000 for the second night. And you could hear them, you could see them on the floor, but with all of those bleachers empty, with the ambiance that's usually created by that crowd and the Tanahashis of the world and the Naotos and the Ibushis that play to that crowd, it was absolutely missing something. Now, thankfully, because of the way that they decorated, because of the ambiance that they created with their, keeping it a big event, they didn't scale any of that down. It still looked like a Tokyo Dome show. And with the matches in execution, it definitely felt like a Tokyo Dome show. We were just missing a little something with the crowd, but what can you do? And in fact, I guess really, if you're a Japanese wrestling fan, you should really be cherishing this right now, because with Tokyo hitting a new COVID high every single day, and with some of the recommendations that they've made and probably some of the regulations that are going to go in, we've probably seen our two biggest wrestling crowds in Japan, at least until they get into some stadiums in the summertime.
You're absolutely right. I've heard about the impending lockdowns that could happen both in Tokyo and the surrounding areas because of the pandemic. So you're right. This might be it for a while. Like you said, at least until spring or summer, when they can get out into the stadiums, or until they can find some way of getting some immunity with vaccines and so on and so forth. Let's talk about Kota Ibushi. That was, I had my doubts as to whether they would pull the trigger and keep the titles on Ibushi. I'm glad I was wrong. I wanted to see Ibushi, after everything he had gone through, winning the G1 last year. I got to see them that first night when they had it in Dallas, and then this year, then losing the briefcase and going through all that. That was a satisfying end to that story.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. There were ways they could have gone with it. They could have seen Jay White come out of it and once again be a thorn in Ibushi's side. There were ways that Naito could have come out of it, and you give him his flowers, and he finally gets that Tokyo Dome moment that a lot of people don't believe that he's had. But the story was Ibushi. Ever since he signed to a full-time New Japan contract, the clock has been on as far as fans go, especially his fans. When is this guy going to overtake Tanahashi? When's he going to overtake Okada and really be the man in New Japan Pro Wrestling? And I thought they told a hell of a story. And there have been a lot of ups and downs with New Japan this year. There have been a lot of ups and downs with Gato's booking for in a lot of aspects for a lot of people out there. There's been issues, but I thought he told this story beautifully, and every aspect of it, even losing time to COVID. And I think that really hurt the interactions he was having with Hiroshi Tanahashi earlier on this year. But ever since he signed full time, people were wondering when, and people thought it could be last year at the Tokyo Dome. And he goes and he loses to Naito, and then the next day he loses to Jay White. And from there, it was telling the story of how he overcomes these obstacles and how he climbs this mountain. And Jay White throughout the year was the thorn in his side. He goes and he wins Bushi wins the G1. And then he immediately turns around and Jay White steals that briefcase from him, cheats, puts the feet on the ropes, the whole 9 yards. And, you're so close to the end of the year. It's like, did this put the bullet in Kota Ibushi's entire year? Are we going to have to wait another year for this? I mean, what's going on? And he overcame all that stuff. And again, there are lots of, if you're a big New Japan fan, there were a lot of layers to this story that not only got told, but got paid off in that match, right down to Jay White having his feet on the ropes in the same exact way. A lot of great callbacks. And the match went a long time. It went almost 50 minutes. It's the longest match in Tokyo Dome history for New Japan. But they gave you, if you're an intense fan, they paid off every single iota of everything in that match, every callback in the world. And if you're not a New Japan fan and you're not as heavily invested in the storyline, it was still an amazing match with the athletics that were worked and all of the stories that were told inside the ring with the moves.
Yeah, I agree that, and it's Ibushi's time. It really is. And finally we're getting to see it. Let me ask you about what was said afterwards by Jay White. He's basically saying that he's going to do New Year's Dash if he's booked, but after that, he's gone. Are we talking storyline gone, or is he actually fed up with New Japan and deciding he wants to try other pastures?
Well, from stepping out of the storyline, from a real life point of view, that man ain't going nowhere. If I'm not mistaken, he's working under a 7-year deal that he probably still has like 4 on. So if there are a lot of people that were wondering, for real, is he looking for a way out, or is his time coming to an end? No, it's not. He's absolutely not. Now, leaving to go back to New Zealand for a while, or leaving to go back to Florida, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly where his residences are right now, but taking some time off, sure, you could absolutely see that. They have a lot of other players and a lot of other storylines that they can continue to work on. But does it just mean that he's done with his group? Because I know that we've speculated on the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare, which is also cheap plug available for subscribers over at f4wonline.com. We talked about the possibilities of that, and does Evil and Jay White split? And that's certainly, he's thrown everything out there. If you're Jay White as a character, he latched on to Bullet Club and found that to be his way to try to achieve success and notoriety. He said he was going to be the Destino of last year and putting Naito to bed, which he didn't do. He said he was going to stop God this year, and the ascent of Kota Ibushi didn't happen this year. And now you see him falling out, completely lost it, almost in tears. Having the titles, and that was a great piece of cinematography, having the titles right in his grasp at the end when they show Ibushi laid out, referee Nojay pulling him away. And I thought, the music that they played after the song, those notes that came after that, I thought were great, because they've opened up this question about what is Jay White going to do? What is his mind state going to be? And who may he be associated with going forward in 2021?
Do you buy into the notion that Bullet Club, I don't know, became less relevant with Jay White?
No, no, not at all. In fact, I think he fit perfectly into the line of guys that they've had in that position. You know, Finn Balor, Prince Devitt kicked open the door for not only junior heavyweights, but for foreigners. There are a lot of doors that he kicked open. And then AJ Styles took that torch for the time that he was there. That torch got passed to Kenny Omega. And then the torch became Jay White's. And Jay White was ascended a lot quicker than they would have liked because of Kenny Omega leaving and everything shaking out with AEW. They decided to go ahead and pull that trigger, and we got what we got at Madison Square Garden. We got the short Jay White title reign. We got that stuff. But I think he's been perfect for it. I think the one person that's been hurt most by Bullet Club has been Evil. And I know there are a lot of people that let me reverse back to Jay White for a second and just say that there are a lot of people that they didn't like the character switch. They didn't know what Switchblade was. I think they didn't like the character more than not liking him, because I don't know, even if you hate the character, even if you hate him as a person, watch him as as a wrestler in the ring. I mean, my God, he's perfect. It's like Osprey. You don't have to love Will Osprey, but you see him out there and you see him in that environment, and you go, man, he's undeniable. Same thing with and there's a lot of guys like that, but I think that was more the issue than anything. I think what's hurt, I think this year with having no fans there, Evil was a great mirror to hold up to Gato's booking to go, these are all these tired tropes that we're sick of seeing that you can get away with sometimes in front of fans, especially willing fans, and with nobody there, all the run-ins, all the referee interference, all that sort of stuff. I think his case has been hurt a lot worse than Jay White's has been at the top of Bullet Club.
Interesting. Talk with Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. Let me ask you this. So Kenta defended his right to challenge for the U.S. title against Kojima. Was successful. We saw the video with Jon Moxley, who is still the current IWGP United States champion, saying he's coming after whoever was going to win, which it's going to be Kenta. Let me lay odds on Moxley dropping that belt, because it seems like it's going to happen. If for no other reason, then that way at least they've got a champion that can be in Japan, that can show up at the big shows, whereas Jon Moxley, between travel restrictions, his AEW deal, might be a little hamstrung by that. And oh, by the way, he's about to be Ed Father.
Yeah, I think it's a 50-50 shot right now. And the reason why is, if AEW is willing to look the other way and let him wrestle in America and then have those matches be shown on New Japan World, I think it gives you some flexibility. Now, he's still not going to Japan, I don't think, at any point, but if you can do things in the dojo, the same place that they've been filming New Japan Strong, you may be able to get away with something right there. To me, if you can wait and you can put something into place where Juice Robinson is the guy that beats him, I'm actually for that. Now, with that said, if you want to look at now as the time to just take this off of him and let this go, and just bring him back and almost make people forget about him and bring him back when it's time to, and you can have people, yeah, I'm okay with that too. And then we get Kenta and Juice Robinson again, which that match was great the last time. You have, Juice coming back saying he, fractured my eye socket. What could I do? I didn't get my shot. Kenta just gloating about it. So there's both. I think it's really a 50-50 shot, because again, if you can figure out a way to keep the belt on Moxley and still utilize him, cool. But otherwise, you might as well just cut your losses and then bring him back and kind of surprise people at a later date.
I think another thing that could play into a possible Kenta Juice Robinson face off would be their shared American, pursuits in NXT. Juice Robinson had his shot, had his time in NXT. Kenta has. Neither were that, memorable, I guess. So I guess that could that be another kind of layer to that story?
Absolutely. And all three of them. I mean, all three of them can make the case as to we all know what it's like to have to work in that system. Juice, got the shortest end of that stick. At least he got to break Kevin Owens' nose on the way out that last NXT TV appearance
True.
that he had. And I really liked him a lot too. It's too bad the gimmick didn't work there, but you could see there was something there. I remember when he signed to New Japan and people were like, this guy? It's like, give him a shot and let's see, because you knew he wanted to work hard and he obviously wanted to be there. And that, obviously mattered because you see how he's achieved there. He's fit in like a glove there. Absolutely. And they all have a claim as to why WWE drove him nuts, but it is a little more, relatable for Kenta and for Juice, because they were both stuck in NXT for so long and they weren't utilized well. And there were so many ups and downs for him. So I think you can almost play that with everybody there, in that scenario if you wanted to. But definitely when it comes to Kenta and Juice, if you want to bring it up with the American story, you absolutely can.
You mentioned Will Ospreay. You mentioned Kazuchika Okada. They had their match. Okada went over on that one. How does Ospreay still look as the leader of this new faction, the Empire? Does this still establish him as a faction leader? Did it do anything to maybe lessen that a little bit? And also, where does Okada stand right now? Is he still, I mean, because especially a lot of American fans, he's still the guy that held that title for so long. He's still kind of like a better term, the face of the company.
And he had a quiet year. He had a very pedestrian year, by Okada terms for sure. But then you got to see him at the Dome and you remember, why he's just so great. I mean, the fact that he was able to protect that Rainmaker all year, getting over that Cobra Clutch, the money clip that he has. And, again, even that played into the story. So when he finally hit the Rainmaker, it was, the whole place lost it. He's had such a pedestrian year. There's no way to go but up. And he's still obviously a top 6 guy there and is going to remain in the rotation up on top. Absolutely. But, again, there's the only way to go for him is up. And the same way, it's the same thing for Ospreay as well, too, with his faction. And it's not in New Japan's world, in their universe, it's not as much of a big deal to have a new faction lose at first or try to figure itself out. And I think that's the story. And we'll see what happens during New Year's Dash, because they may walk out of there with the 6-man titles. And, there's some things that could happen on that show that could open some things up. But it's the first big test for Ospreay. I'm sure they're going to play it like that as the leader of this faction. And it also, because of the way the matches went, Ospreay was this close to beating Okada and came short. Jeff Cobb was this close to beating Shingo and came short. The Great Okan was this close to beating Tanahashi and came short. They're right there. They all know that they're right there. How do they put themselves over the top? So I think they did a good job. I know some people are thinking, oh, God, you bury them already. It's like, no, with New Japan is not WWE. You cannot put them in the same, you can't make the same comparisons. You have to give Gato the benefit of the doubt and give their booking and their storytelling the benefit of the doubt, because nothing is made for next week's show. It's made for a year down the line, and there's going to be these layers and there's going to be these chapters written that will pay off in the end. Where in WWE, nothing matters. You can drop everything at whenever you want to. It's Vince McMahon's snow globe that he shakes up, and it's only his vision. It's not the same way in New Japan. It's almost not the same way in any other wrestling promotion, or sports entertainment promotion, but certainly not that way in New Japan. So these are all building blocks. These are all steps to tell a story that's to come.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you talking about that, very long-term storytelling, and, it's almost like we know New Japan will probably be thinking, at least in the back of their mind, about next year's Wrestle Kingdom right now. Whereas, like you said, Vince and company, they may not even know what's going to happen this Friday on SmackDown, much less at WrestleMania. So,
well, I mean, the Roman Reigns thing was a great example of that, where Goldberg coming back, where everything looked like he was going to be bumped up against Roman Reigns, and then they go ahead and make the sharp left turn at the last minute. It's going to be him and Drew McIntyre at Royal Rumble, as if the Royal Rumble just happened to appear on the schedule out of nowhere. It gives you a great you just watch their TV for a couple of weeks, you get a great idea of what's working and what's definitely not in that world.
Exactly, exactly. Um, talk a couple other highlights for you for Wrestle Kingdom. We had Guerrillas of Destiny getting their seventh heavyweight tag titles. Hiromu Takahashi is now the new junior heavyweight champion. Um, anything else that stood out? You mentioned Jeff Cobb, and I love Jeff Cobb to death. I think he's just a fantastic person and an even better wrestler. And from all accounts, he had a hell of a showing there in that match against Takagi.
He looks like a killer. He looked like an absolute killer last night. And I'm thinking him and Great Okan as a tag team would be something that would be very welcome in that world as well too. On a regular basis, or at least as an infrequent thing. I mean, just popping up together. I think they would be a tremendous team together and play off each other incredibly well. Jeff Cobb, he doesn't have to do interviews there, but the interviews that he was doing in the lead up shows how comfortable he's gotten behind the microphone and how comfortable he is in his environment over there right now. And again, he doesn't need to talk. That's what Osprey's for. The Osprey will be there to get the heat on the microphone. Cobb's there to kill, and he looked incredible against Shingo. And that's a match that I'd love to see again. And Shingo's, got an IWGP title shot in his pocket because he defeated Kota Ibushi during the G1. And that's a match that could actually be next year's Tokyo Dome main event. It wouldn't surprise me at all. If they decide to go in a direction like that and build that up, it would be spectacular. I mean, it would be incredible. But Shingo playing off Cobb was perfect. Shingo was always a big guy in the junior heavyweight world. Now he's facing a big guy that Jim Cornette would say this all the time about Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner. They could pick you up and put you right down in the places they needed to be. And if they didn't like you, you would go into the places that they wanted you to be, whether you wanted to or not. And Jeff Cobb is the same exact way. He gets a little bit more of a killer streak in him, which I think he's got now. Man, this is going to be a great year for him too. I thought he looked spectacular. Hiromu, again, what a simple story to tell. He goes and he defeats El Phantasmo, who is part of the future of that junior heavyweight division. There's a lot good shaking out with the heavyweight division with some new faces and just a new feel to it more than new faces. With the junior heavyweight division, it's the same way. And El Phantasmo is going to be a big piece of that once Hiromu is bumped up and moves on and goes to something different, no matter what that is. But that match was spectacular. That story they told with him was so simple, coming back from breaking his neck, the whole rise up and winning the title over Taiji Ishimori, who played that matchup great. Because in theory, you'd think there's just no doubt that Hiromu's not winning this match with this story. It wouldn't make any sense, for him not to. There was doubt with the never open weight title match. There was doubt with the IWGP title, but with the junior heavyweight title, there was really no doubt. And Ishimori did such a good job working on Shingo that he should be, mentioned as a part of this too. He's been around for so long. One of those guys from Noah from, 15 years ago. And he's been a guy that's assimilated himself into New Japan and has been a real bright spot. So, both of those matches, I don't know what the future is going to be as far as Suzuki-gun goes, but I could see Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. splitting off from that faction. I hope they stay together as a team because I think they're great. I didn't think it made sense for Guerrillas of Destiny in a storyline way to win, but I was kind of hoping they keep the titles on Zack Sabre and Taichi because I thought that match was excellent as well too. So, you get the Bullet Club nonsense at the end, that was going to happen, but I thought up until then, I thought that match was really good. The only down stuff on the shows I thought was the King of Pro Wrestling stuff with Toru Yano, and I like Yano a lot, and his act I think is great. I don't like him with a title. I don't think it was a good way to utilize that spot on the opener for the second night. You had a way to do something. If you were going to go with 4 guys left remaining, even if you wanted Yano to come out of this with a victory, why not have the old murder grandpas? Why not have Suzuki and Nagata and Tenzan make it to the next night? Why not have the Young Lions? Why not have Uemura and whoever make it to the next night? I thought they had a chance to go outside of the box there, and they went with the same old thing, and it wasn't very good.
I get you. Mike, before I let you go, they did announce during the event that TV deals for the United States and the United Kingdom are coming soon. Have we heard anything? And if you were going to lay odds, what would you think that's going to look like, especially in the U.S.?
I really don't know. And I know Dave Meltzer talked about some of the things that he's heard with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Radio. I don't know. To me, it feels like a streaming service. It seems like that's what it feels like. If it a Twitch or something like that. I for some reason I'm picturing that more than a TV deal. I hope they get a TV deal, but what is TV? Anymore, unfortunately. If they go back on access, well, hell, how many houses have access, unfortunately. So you're still limited in the same spot. Does Anthem, do you have to deal with Anthem? You didn't want to deal with Anthem before, the owners of Impact. Do you want to deal with them now? So I don't know. I'm really, I haven't heard that many any network rumblings. I hear, there's a lot of hope spots, but as far as like networks, it doesn't, I don't know. I'll be very surprised. I'm fascinated to hear what it's going to be. My gut says it's going to be something along the lines of a streaming service or something like that.
Yeah, I think you may be right. There's only so much inventory that networks, cable networks, whatever, can carry, especially when it comes to pro wrestling. And I think we're kind of getting to the point there might not be too many openings left. So he is Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. Catch him on Wrestling Observer Live Sundays through Fridays and follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Mike, man, it is so good to talk to you. Like I said, I've been wanting to get you on forever. I hope we can do it again soon. But all the best to you and your family. Happy New Year. Be well, and we'll talk again soon.
Stu, to you too. I appreciate you dealing with my schedule and getting me on here, finally being able to and I promise you it won't take as long to get me back on again. And all the same, the best to you and to all the viewers and listeners out there. Really appreciate it. Thank you.